I'll call the case of your People versus Ray Ray. Record should reflect, again, that Mr. McRoberts is here on behalf of the people. Mr. Van Noorstrand is here with his hand is right. Mr. Van Noorstrand, do you want a copy of the findings of fact decision and verdict for everyone?
No, we have that.
Record should reflect that for the finding of the court made its ruling, and it was a guilty verdict. The matter has been set down for sentence for this evening. People move sentence.
So moved, Your Honor.
People wish to hear.
Your Honor, based on the previous recommendation for all the other individuals that stood trial, we're asking for 15 days.
And Mr. Van Noorstrand, any legal reason why sentence cannot be imposed?
There's no legal reason why it cannot be imposed this evening, and I would certainly object to the legal's recommendation of 15 days, and I know that my client does wish to make a sentencing statement.
Do you wish to make a statement?
I do.
Okay. And Ms. Wright, do you wish to make a statement?
Yes, sir, I would. Thank you. Well, my name is Mary Wright, Mary Ann Wright. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel. I spent 29 years in our military. I was a U.S. diplomat, spent 16 years as a diplomat in places such as Nicaragua, Grenada, Somalia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sierra Leone, Micronesia. I helped reopen the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan in December of 2001 and spent 6 months there. I was in Mongolia in 2003 when I resigned in opposition to the war in Iraq. For the last 9 years, I have been challenging U.S. government policies to include policies of the use of assassin drones, such as what we were doing on April 22nd of last year. I am proud to be a part of the hundreds of people that came out to Hancock Air Force Base to let our fellow citizens know of our concerns about the use of these drones. The responsibility of all of us, I think, to alert our friends and neighbors and our government when we see something going on that we believe is inappropriate, incorrect, or perhaps criminal. It's a very weighty responsibility. I myself, as I mentioned, I've spent nearly 4 decades of my life in the U.S. government. And I know for a fact the U.S. government is not always correct in everything that it does. I've been a part of some incorrect things that have happened. And while I was in government, there were plenty of citizens who came to me when I was in the U.S. Embassy, for example, in Nicaragua, that were saying our policies there are wrong. It was their right to do it. I'm glad they did it, and they were right. And I think our responsibilities that we are exercising now here at Hancock Air Force Base this last year were appropriate. And there are going to be lots more of these types of citizen actions as we see that the proliferation of drones in our communities is getting, in our communities in the United States, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. As we see that our Federal Aviation Authority now is being mandated by Congress to open up 6 training areas in the United States in the next 6 months so that they can figure out how to integrate up to 30,000 drones into our commercial airspace. We see that the assassin drones that are killing American citizens in Yemen, 3 of them now designated for extermination by our own government, and that has taken place. We see that there are hundreds of Afghans, hundreds of Pakistanis, people in Yemen and in Somalia that have been murdered by our drones. We see that our U.S. military is being really brought to a halt, which I think is very good in Afghanistan, because of the outcry of the people of Pakistan, because the CIA and totally illegal ununiformed government service, the CIA, not the Central Army Agency, but the intelligence agency, has a secret war going on with drones in Pakistan, to the extent that Pakistani citizens have blocked the entire logistics route from Karachi on the sea coast all the way to Afghanistan. We see the blowback of what these drones are doing is very, very bad for the United States. We see that an American citizen, a Pakistani American citizen, went to Times Square and tried to blow up his van there because he is horrified about what our drones are doing in Pakistan. It was only because of a hot dog salesman in Times Square that guy was unable to do what he meant to do, which was to show America this type of weaponry is horrible, is terrible, is killing innocent civilians. So I certainly understand what your role is and the prosecutor's role, and we understand what our role is. That it is very important that in these critical times right now for our country, the critical times for the safety and security of our country, that when we see that there is a weapon system that's being used that is jeopardizing our national security, not enhancing, it really is our responsibility to do it. I feel that I do a lot of public speaking around the country. I've just come from 8 days in Missouri talking about these drones, where they also have drones that are flown from there into Afghanistan or in Afghanistan. It is important that we speak out. If we don't speak out, the government rules the day in using types of weapons that I believe are really, really dangerous for our country. So I would hope that a sentence would be appropriate to the intense importance of this, that will allow citizens to continue to speak out on it. It's not that we are committing felonies. It's not that we are dangerous felons. Certainly, sitting in front of a gate that's already blocked at a military installation, that's what we did. But it was for a very good purpose, to alert our fellow citizens of what's going on here in Syracuse. And we all are doing a community service by doing that, I believe. Thank you, sir.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions because of your background. Where do you draw the line? You're saying the drones are bad because of the collateral blowback. Aren't there other instrumentalities of war that we've always had that have the same collateral damage, so to speak?
Tragically, it's true. And one could argue that, F-16s that fly over and drop giant bombs, they kill lots of people. They do. They do. Then there's backlash from those types of things, too. What we're seeing right now, a particular weapon system that is being talked about in Pakistan and Afghanistan as something that people are taking action against U.S. troops for, a single weapon system that is really, really backfiring on it's just a terrible system that is.
But at some level, the government has to have defense systems in place, correct, for its constituency?
Well, and then we can get into where they should be using them. Yeah, if it's really for the defense of our country, I would say that using them in Afghanistan against Afghans is not where the danger to America comes from. I think what we are doing is creating more danger for it. Here we have, if you really look at it, we've got how many Americans that are there? 120,000 military. We've got 80,000 contractors there. We've got 40,000 NATO troops. We, the United States and NATO, have trained 120,000 or more Afghan military. We have over 100,000 Afghan national police that we've trained. So that's about 600,000 people that are working on the national security of Afghanistan, internationals as well as Afghans. And then what is the threat? The CIA says on a big day for Al-Qaeda, they might have between 25 and 50 people there. And the Taliban, if all of them came out at once, would be about 15,000. So we have 15,050 versus 600,000 people. And what's happening? the outrage, I mean, we have 2 NATO groups that have now withdrawn within this last week, and because of a series of things that are happening. And you're talking about the blowback from lack of cultural sensitivity of large military forces being there, the burning of the Quran. You're talking about Afghans and Pakistanis who have taken action against U.S. interests, specifically on the issue of the drones. You have a situation that I think these drones are really harmful for the United States.
I guess what I'm taking away from that, when I was questioning Mr. Clark, it was the same issue that what is going to be used at what given time, I think you can probably agree is a very gray area. It's a very gray line to walk. I think, was it Churchill that said war is hell?
Well, and boy, that's for sure. I mean, any of us that have been in the military have been a part of being an organization that makes war as hell as well as receives it. I mean, and you can look at other kinds of weapons that the United States has used and then said, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I would argue that the nuclear weapons are one of them. I mean, it's the United States that's used them, but have we used them since the time that we incinerated 200,000 people in Nagasaki and 200,000 more in Hiroshima? Yeah, well, but I'll tell you, the government then recognizes, I think, at a certain point, the outrage of certain kinds of weapons, and it's one of the reasons that there's never been a tactical nuclear weapon that's ever been exploded anywhere, even though there's been talk about using them. The ultimate reason, in my opinion, that they've never been used is because of the outrage of the world about those weapons. And I would say that we're approaching that sort of outrage on the use of the drones. In just the short time that we've known you, which started, I believe, in October when our first trial, if you would do a Google search of the numbers of articles that are now appearing about drones throughout the world, drones that are from Israel, that are sold to Russia, drones that come from China, drones that are, I mean, there are articles every single day in our newspaper about drones. So the level of interest and, I would say, challenge to these drones is growing every day. If you, even right here in Syracuse, your own newspaper here in an editorial, recent editorial, the bottom line was, or the last sentence, should we be having an international ban on the use of drones?
By the way, I think the word on the street is the discussion has started, and I think it was a large outcropping out of this trial situation.
Yes, sir. Woo!
But it's going to take discussion.
Surely. And if I may
with different points of view.
If I may say, I mean, we appreciate the opportunity to have been in this court and have had the opportunity to discuss it and to have the media that's covering the trial. It's been very, very helpful, I think, for both sides of it. And
by the way, for the record, my full name, I'm not sure if it was General Sherman.
War is hell.
You're right.
General Sherman.
Since in judging this court, I'm not going to impose any jail time or community service. I am going to send you to a one-year conditional discharge. Conditions being stay out of further trouble with the legal system for that one-year period. However, I am going to impose a fine. There has to be, in my mind, a price paid for the exercise that occurred here. $250 plus a $125 surcharge. I'll have that payable on or before May 2nd. I'm going to serve you with a summons with notice that if you need additional time, you can request that time with a valid reason. However, if it's a willful failure to pay, then I will conduct this civil judgment.
could it be to the Afghan youth? Could we make payments to the Afghan youth peace volunteers?
I don't have that power.
Well, other states where I have been convicted of misdemeanor violations have allowed us to pay to 501c3 organizations, nonprofit organizations.
That's a question you're gonna have to raise to the New York State Legislature, because I'm bound by what they dictate in the statutes.
Thank you.
Okay, record should reflect I served a summons with notice of comments right by Mr. Morse and a copy as well as Mr. Roberts. And then anything further?
Yes, Your Honor, if I may. And with respect to that last piece that we talked about at the last, I think this is going to be relevant to everyone involved here this evening. You are saying that you are compelled to have the fine directed to the town?
No, it goes to the state.
To the state.
Under my state authority, where it gets distributed, you have to look in the Justice Court handbook contract. I have often wondered myself where the surcharges go. The fines, I still can't figure out. Some of it goes to the town. It depends on what disposition it is. Some goes to the county. And I think in 2010, when I last looked, out of all the town and village courts in the state of New York, I think the state took just shy of 120 million.
And is that, are you saying, is that pursuant to criminal procedure law, section 42010?
42010 deals with, are you dealing
Not
with
the
that?
I'm talking about the
Are
surcharge.
you dealing, well, the surcharge is under 42035, I believe.
Right. The fine that you assessed.
I guess the only thing I want to raise here this evening, right now, as far, and I'm going to deal with the sentencings tonight, as far as the other issue you're raising, this court has not received any declaration of delinquency relative to any of the conditions that were to be satisfied by this evening, nor has this court had any paperwork filed by any party relative to that. So as far as this court is concerned this evening, there's nothing before the court on those matters. If there's something filed, I'll schedule it and we'll deal with it.
Not to come back again.
And again, you're right that 42010 is the collection of fines and it deals with restitution reparations, which is not applicable in this case, but I think it's 42035 on the surcharges. And my understanding is at least they've driven in all the judges in the town and village courts that surcharges are never waivable.
Okay, again, I'm not addressing the surcharge, I'm addressing the $250 fine that you have assessed and that you assessed to my client.
You can certainly look up where it goes to the Justice Court handbook.
But 42010 does seem to suggest that you, in imposing the fine, may make it upon an individual that you may designate the official other than the district attorney to whom it's to be remitted.
But that goes to the official issue. If you want to argue something like that, I'd ask you to submit papers.
Okay.
And I'll get a response from the district attorney's office. And we'll do it. Right now, I've had nothing that I'm aware of filed with this court by any of the parties. You know, in fact, I couldn't even tell you right now if you know, how many cases somebody may have paid and maybe have not paid, and how many did community service and how many didn't. Again, nothing's been filed by any of the parties. So I'm going to deal with the sentences tonight, and that's it.